Hey everybody, how's it going? Icy Cat here, and this time we've got an operator profile for you for Season 3's new Skull Rain operator, CAVEIRA. Now if you want to know more about how to get the most out of this new operator, you're going to want to stick around and find out more. CAVEIRA is a new operator with the Bope CTU. Now, a couple of notes on pronunciation here real quick before I get started. Whenever I've tried to say these names, I've gotten a lot of corrections from various people. Please understand I'm doing my best. I'm from the Midwest of the United States, so it's not going to be perfect, but this is the closest to how I've heard it actually said in some Brazilian films and things like that.
CAVEIRA! CAVEIRA!
Also, in regards to the CTU, some people call it Bope, some people say it Bope. That said, let's take a closer look at the operator. Let's begin by taking a look at her weapons. First up is the Beretta M12 submachine gun chambered in 9mm. This does 36 damage, has a rate of fire of 550, and it has 30 rounds plus 1 in the chamber for ammo capacity. It has good recoil, but it's slow on the rate of fire, and it has somewhat moderate to low damage. Her second primary option is the SPAS 15 semi-auto shotgun. It does 28 damage and has 7 shells for ammo capacity. It's powerful up close, but it loses punch really fast, and it has a lot of recoil. If you spam the semi-auto on this pretty heavily, you'll find your shots climbing up higher than you intended to. This is one shotgun that can definitely benefit from the use of a laser to increase your hip fire accuracy if you don't mind rolling with one. Her secondary weapon is the PRB-92. This is a little different than the other operator in her CTU. They both have the PRB-92 as a base, but hers is a special version. It has the integral silencer built onto the front with the heat shroud wrap on it. It does 99 damage, however, it is a very short range maximum damage, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. It has a 16-round magazine, 15 plus 1 in the chamber. Choice of secondary gadgets will be either a nitro cell or barbed wire, and both are really viable for her. When you're roaming, you can go with the nitro cell to take out anything that you run into, from shields to a Blackbeard, but because her ability relies so much on her sneaking up on people, putting out barbed wire for people to stumble into and hearing that sound of them taking out is a good way to creep up on them from behind. CAVEIRA is fast, but has low armor, so while she's going to be a very quick mover, she cannot take a lot of hits. Her main ability is silent walking. This allows her to be able to move much more quietly and in her environment without making any noise. Let's take a look at a few samples of this. We're going to start out running full speed, and then we're going to do it again in silent walk, and she still will make noise while in silent walk, but it is noticeably quieter. Let's take a listen. You see a similar change in audio when we're doing the walking. It's less noticeable overall because it is a quieter bass sound. Crouch walking is of course the quietest way to move around in the game, and when she does that in her silent walking, she is almost completely inaudible. Even regular movement when you're shifting around on the floor, say if you're in a prone position and you're adjusting, can be quite a noisy thing to do for most operators. However, if she's doing that while in silent mode, she won't make much noise at all. Now please note that in these clips we did have some barbed wire present on the floor, and that the additional noise that barbed wire makes is something that she can negate through use of her silent walking. While it doesn't slow down a defensive operator, it can still generate noise to trigger an attacker to turn around and realize they're being flanked. That won't be a problem with her. Her silent walking ability is something that is a rechargeable ability, and the first kind that's like that in the game. It doesn't actually depend on any type of a gadget, it's more of an innate ability. It depletes during use, and to go from full to completely empty takes 12 seconds. To recharge from empty to all the way full takes 7 seconds, so you can replenish the ability very quickly. Furthermore, when you're using it, you can turn it off at any time. You don't actually have to use it from completely full to completely empty. You can just do it to dash across a small area and then turn it back off again. Then you won't need that full 7 seconds to recharge. You might only need 2 or 3 depending on how much you've used. When you are in silent walking mode, you default to only your pistol. You cannot have your primary weapon out when you silent walk. When you engage the ability, she automatically switches the weapon. She also has a special feature when sneaking in that if she does a melee attack on somebody, instead of pulling out her knife as most operators would do, resulting in a one-hit kill, she will instead punch the operator. This will knock them down and put them into a down but not out state. Again, this only occurs while silent walking is engaged and she melees. If she melees outside of silent walking, it will be the standard knifing animation. The other half of CAVEIRA's special ability is that when the target is in a down but not out state, she can interrogate them and gain intel on the other operators on the enemy team. When she does this, all the enemy team's operators are visible and tracked in real time with red targets on their names for 10 full seconds. This isn't just visible to CAVEIRA. The rest of the defending operators on her team can also see the same information. These track no matter where they are on the map. Even if they're on the outside back where they spawned, they'll still show up. There is no range limitation on this. It cannot be blocked by any reinforced walls or anything like that. You see their approximate position regardless of wherever they are, and it tracks in real time for 10 seconds. If you get consecutive interrogations, you can chain a few of these together. A target may only be interrogated once. Upon the successful completion of an interrogation, she takes out her knife and stabs them in the neck. That operator is now killed. While she's doing the interrogation, she can of course be shot to interrupt the interrogation. And while it's not as useful of a technique, it is possible to interrupt the interrogation by shooting the subject. If you don't have an angle on CAVEIRA, but for some reason you can see just enough of the operator that's being interrogated, you can actually shoot that operator, interrupting her ability to get the interrogation. You'll incur a friendly fire, but at least you and your teammates won't get tracked. Again, that would be a very specific situation, but it is possible to do. There really isn't any other consistent way to interrupt her interrogation sequence, though. Here we try doing an example to see if Twitch's shock drone will interrupt the sequence. It does not. She's able to successfully complete the interrogation, and Twitch's drone was nothing more than a distraction for a few hit points of damage. Likewise, flashbangs, smoke grenades, things like that don't really interrupt the interrogation sequence either. The only way to do that is to either shoot her or shoot the subject. There is one other way that people have been using, is that they actually will leave the match or turn off their game while they're being interrogated, thus denying the interrogation sequence. This is a really cheap thing to do. Don't do this. If you got downed, then just suck it up. You know, you got interrogated, you just have to live with it. But if like you're gonna, in the middle of a ranked match, turn off your game to avoid the interrogation penalty, it's not something I've seen personally. But I've heard several people saying that while they're interrogating, the person just leaves the game. Now, I do hope that maybe Ubisoft comes up with a way of dealing with that. I don't think it's going to be a chronic problem. It's only been isolated instances here and there. But if you have people that are just doing that thing, maybe make it so the interrogation still counts even if the operator leaves the game. Like the body sticks around long enough for it to be completed if it's already in progress when the person leaves or something like that. Now let's talk a little bit about her sidearm, because this is pretty much like a third primary weapon for CAVEIRA in some ways. It's notably different from the pistol that Capito uses just because its damage model is handled completely differently. It's intended to have a very non-lethal effect. This, of course, assists with her ability to get the interrogation. With that massive 99 damage, you'd think that this would be a really overpowered weapon. However, the damage fall-off is so severe that it really limits it. You almost need to treat it as though it's like an extended melee attack in some ways. You get full damage out to approximately 3 meters. From between 3 to 7 meters, you can expect to down a target from about 3 hits or so. And then from 7 meters plus, it's treated pretty much like any other handgun in the game, requiring a bunch of shots to take somebody down. Of course, a headshot at any range will result in an instant down but not out. And again, that's where this gun will differ from others. Its intended purpose is to be as non-lethal as possible. Of course, if you still continue to fire into your target after they've been downed, you will kill them. You can kill with this gun. Its intent is just to try to be as non-lethal as possible so that you can execute those interrogations. Different armor ratings do change things just a little bit, but not appreciably so. If you were to take a lightly armored operator and a heavily armored operator and put them next to each other and fire into them at the exact same range, they would pretty much go down at the same speed. It's really only going to matter when you're at ranges of more than 7 meters. Where you shoot your target largely doesn't matter as long as it's still registering a hit. So if you have a shield operator and all you can really hit is the hand or maybe the legs, you're still going to be able to put that target into a down but not out state. CAVEIRA belongs to a class of operator that I like to call a super roamer. While any defensive operator can roam, a couple of operators are specifically tailored to it. Specifically Pulse and kind of Jaeger, but CAVEIRA is just absolutely tailored for this. She has the ability to move around silently and get into places where you wouldn't expect her to be because of that. She's actually a little on the weak side when having a full front-on firefight, so she works best coming up from behind people. The best way that you're going to play that is at the beginning of the round to put up your reinforced wall panels, and then typically you're going to disappear somewhere in the map. The first thing you should do is immediately hop on cameras and figure out where the enemies are coming from. Try to look and identify if you can figure out which ones may have split off from other ones and try to pick that operator off if you can. In some ways, it's actually a very solid play to use CAVEIRA to her strengths by letting the attackers push in and begin getting deeper into the map before you even begin to think about hitting them. She's kind of weak on frontal assault and she doesn't have the range to slug it out with an attacker. If they're outside, she can't really do much, especially in the way of using her ability. So you really depend on coming up behind them unaware. I highly recommend having the ability to have trapdoors already pre-blown open so you can navigate up and down between the floors. If you're trying to track the enemy team and you discover they're on the floor beneath you, dropping down through a trapdoor to get behind them very quickly and quietly is a great way to do it. Do be careful when you go in for the interrogation because frequently there will be another one in the vicinity. When you're interrogating, you are vulnerable for a few seconds. And there's nothing worse than coming out of it finding a guy right on top of you. CAVEIRA interrupts the meta of the game in a very significant way. Combined with other roaming heavy operators, the game has now seen a shift towards people that play away from the objective. And as an attacker, it makes your push into the structure a little bit more of a messy affair because you're far more uncertain where you're going to run into people. For defensive team composition, CAVEIRA pairs particularly well with Pulse, Valkyrie, and Frost. With Pulse, it's not so much that she works with him, but together the two of them make a roaming threat that the attackers are going to have a hard time dealing with. Valkyrie is an absolute essential to run with CAVEIRA. The more cameras that she has to monitor her environment, the better. She depends on being able to sneak up on people, and knowing where they are is key to that ability. If you have a Valkyrie that doesn't mind putting up at least a few of her cameras in some high traffic areas that are further away from the main objective zone, then you'll have a lot of really useful intel to play with. Having a Frost on your team when playing with her is also really good because the Frost traps will automatically put a target into a down but not out state. Then she can come up and get the interrogation. It's important to note that her interrogation does not require her to be the one that put the target into a down but not out state. If you come upon somebody that's already been downed, you can take advantage of that even if somebody else did it, and Frost traps are a great way to accomplish that. One of the biggest assets you'll have as a CAVEIRA player is if you have strong map knowledge. Her ability, more than any other character in the game, relies on stealth. Knowing your environment with absolute certainty of how to get to where you want to go quickly and quietly is going to make all the difference in the world between being a successful CAVEIRA player or just being a waste of a pick for your team. Well, that wraps up the operator profile for CAVEIRA. Tomorrow, we'll be taking a closer look at the Bope operator, Capito. Also, further ahead in the week, you can look forward to some reviews on the new weapon skins, the full map walkthrough for Favela, and an in-depth look at the new angled foregrip. Now, if you want to stay up to date on when all that new information comes out, then please like and subscribe. You can also follow me at IcyCat25 on either Facebook or Twitter. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.